With me on the program now, from Sydney Labor MP Ed Husic, and in Melbourne Liberal MP Josh Frydenberg. Gentlemen, good morning. Josh, Queensland not even willing to put in an extra $1 for the NDIS. Is that good enough?
Well, look, Campbell Newman's got a big budget deficit effectively to fund as a result of the legacy of the Labor government there. He's got $100 billion in government debt. So the decision of Campbell Newman is one that he will take as the Premier. But I think this is a really important bipartisan reform. I think we need to explain that first, Kieran, the NDIS. It's just unacceptable that somebody can be funded differently for their disability depending on which state they're in or how they got that disability, whether it was by an accident or whether it was by birth. That's why Tony Abbott had written to the Prime Minister suggesting a bipartisan parliamentary committee to look at ways to roll out the NDIS, because it's not just going to be in the Gillard parliamentary term or just a Tony Abbott parliamentary term as Prime Minister. It's going to be in successive parliamentary terms. And you know what the Prime Minister did? You know what? But you know what the Prime Minister did,
The states have got to do their
Kieran?
bit too, Josh.
Absolutely, and they do. But you know what the Prime Minister did? She waited 33 days and then sent a very terse response back to Tony Abbott saying, I don't want your help. And look, this is going to require both sides coming together and working with the states to try to fund fully fund an NDIS going forward.
Well, let's go to Ed on that. Why did the Prime Minister not take the opportunity to elevate this above the partisanship and the acrimony of our politics?
Well, I think she has. I mean, the fact of the matter is we have been trying to work with the states on this, and in some cases I think we've had productive discussions, and in particular, I mean, I don't, obviously you'd expect me to have a lot of different views to Premier O'Farrell, but at least on this and on Gonski, he's got issues that he needs to deal with from a state perspective. We certainly understand it, and we're prepared to work through those. That's why we've offered an extra $150 million to New South Wales to work through that, and that's cooperative federalism in action. I mean, Campbell Newman, what is he on? He is always looking to pick a fight. He can't on the one hand say he wants to work with the federal government, and then every time he gets a chance to, he puts in a dud proposal for Gympie, where he's not really making any headway there. And he just, on every issue when it comes to a federal-state relations issue, he's picking a fight, and it's not good enough. Be a Premier, for God's sake.
OK, well, let's go to Josh. Josh, on that submission, apparently, according to the Minister, it was a 2-page submission, didn't even mention Gympie, that as opposed to more substantial, thorough submissions, I think, from Victoria and others, Liberal governments, who want to be a part of this.
Well, I would hope there would be a trial in Queensland, and I think Campbell Newman has suggested that the Commonwealth Government could fund that particular program in Gympie. Look, we believe in the...
Why should they, if there's a Mickey Mouse submission from the government up there?
Well, look, I think it's in the government's interest to have viable programs in more than just South Australia or New South Wales. It needs to be rolled out across the country, and there are going to be different environments in which it needs to be tested. So, look, I just think we should put partisan politics aside here. The federal government needs to step up. We believe it should have allocated more money in the last budget. $1 billion over 4 years was just less than a quarter of what the Productivity Commission recommended that the federal government allocate. So as a federal coalition, we are firmly committed to the NDIS, and we will work more effectively than this government with the states in order to get them to do their fair share.
Yeah, but Josh,
okay.
I mean, I get that, and I welcome certainly a lot of the words that Josh has just mentioned, but looking at Queensland, very quick facts. $1 billion from the federal government, nearly 80% provided of the funding initially by us. The Gympie proposal, 2 pages, in a state that underspends on support for disability services. I mean, I think those facts are pretty compelling. Campbell Newman has got to be a Premier, not a partisan, when it comes to this issue.
A quick break on AM Agenda. We'll be back in a moment.